Okay, so continuing on, we're gonna use the same split surface tool to kind of start to split, the blocks and then the individual parcels. Um, and the one thing that I want to mention is it's always best to work from biggest to smallest. So by that I mean, start with the block itself, and then the outer property line of like the main block itself, and kind of like the easement line where the sidewalks are in between, the edge of the pavement, the street, and then the property line, and then each individual parcel itself. And I'm gonna do probably one or two blocks with on the video for you to see, and then I'm actually gonna pause the video so I can do the rest of this really quickly, and then continue on from there. So kind of do the same way as I did in the previous video when I cut out just the area of the surface that I wanted to. I'm going to do split surface, and I'm going to select the site. So now I can select this kind of gray line right here is the line for the edge of the pavement. So I'm going to pick that line, and I'm going to go all the way around. And then you can see here, it's not, you can see how these lines are actually little tiny lines. You could pick each one, or like if you wanted it to actually look like more like a circle, you could do, you can pick this arc option, and then kind of just go like, it'll kind of match it to, for you. So it's a little bit more accurate, and then trying to draw out all those little kind of, rectangles there. And I'm just going to go up to this line, a little bit of that. Now this is the trim tool, and I always like, after I put stuff in, I like to go around and trim everything, just to make sure everything kind of matches up. And if this isn't a enclosed surface, like for instance, if I leave this, say, out a little bit, I'll get an error message saying, it's not closed, and you can see how it kind of highlights the area. So that's always kind of like an error message that you want to watch out for. So once it's closed, it should now split the surface. And when you're doing this in the site, it's always actually kind of good to go back and forth between this site plan view and a 3D view. So now you can see, actually in 3D, I'm gonna hide. I'm gonna hide this because when you're in 3D, you never kind of really want to see that. You kind of want to see what you just created. So you can see that topo surface that I just split is that. And if I highlight it and go back to this, you can see that that's what's highlighted. So now that topo surface is split, I'm actually going to split that again to kind of create the sidewalk area. So I'm going to do split, and then now you can see I can pick two. I can pick this outer one or the inner one. And obviously you want to pick the inner one because that's a separate surface. And you can probably get what I mean from that if I go to 3D. So this is one surface, and then now this is a separate surface. So they're both different kind of entities now. So you can see that's one surface, and that's another. So you always want to pick what you're splitting. So I want to split the smaller one, so I'm going to pick that one. And if you ever get confused, like I just did there, you can go to 3D view to kind of see clearly what you want to pick. Then trying to do it here, since I'm kind of used to Revit, I know what to click on if I ever have an issue. So I'm going to pick this the outer ledge of all the parcel lines. So I can split those. That goes right to the edge. Since I already split that, you can see how there's an edge there, because you remember this is right where the block goes up to. In this circumstance, I can actually just maybe extend this a little past it, and a little no to split it automatically. And this is like a special circumstance where it doesn't have to be a closed boundary. And this is like the confusing thing about Revit, where it some things can be a closed surface and some things don't have to. It's a pain. It's kind of little tricks that you notice as you kind of go. So because this is, like I said, this is the boundary line of that block that I split, the first split that I did, I can just leave it like that and it should split for me, and it does. So now when I go to 3D, you can see that there's the sidewalk and then the actual properties themselves, where all the parcels are going to be. So now what we're going to do is we're going to split each parcel. So I'm going to go to the split surface again, and like I said, obviously I want the innermost region that I just split, so I can split the parcels. And this is going to work in the same way, where I don't need to have a closed region. I can just do this, and it's going to split this parcel for me right here. And you can see that now this is a separate surface, which you can see. And then I'm going to split again. So now that surface is already split, so I want to actually click on this again. So I can split that. And then actually what I'm going to do is I want to click on this, and I'm going to split to make it easier for me. I'm going to split right across this way. And that went to there. So now I have this, just this is one parcel, that blue line. So I want to split that into the rest. So I'm just going to click on that, split that, split again, split this one, split that. So now that whole bottom is all separate. If I go to 3D view, you can see that whole bottom matches. And actually, let me turn off the contours in this view so it's easier for you guys to see. So you can see that whole bottom is split. So now I'm going to finish splitting the top portion. So pick this surface and split to that. And pick it again. So you can see that it's not bad to do this on Toposurface. A lot of people kind of freak out when they think of a 3D site in Revit. And it's not bad to create. It's actually more tedious because you kind of got to do everything over, like same command 20 times to actually get it to go. So it's not too bad. There. So that's everything split now. So now we have the sidewalk and everything split. And as I keep going, once I do another block, it's going to start to form the street itself. And I'm actually going to do, obviously, if you pick that up quickly, you can end the video here and continue on with the next video. And in the next video, I'm going to put, before I start the next video, I'm actually going to finish the whole site. So when we start, it's actually probably going to, I think it's probably going to be added materials so you can see like the difference between roads and stuff like that, and sidewalks. But in continuing on in this video, I'm actually going to do one more block just so people can see it again, and then go from there. The next block I'm going to do this block below, below here. So I'm going to do split surface, and I'm going to split. I'm going to go back to the larger surface now for the whole, the whole kind of area that we're showing surrounding our, the actual site itself. And I'm going to pick, the sidewalk. Is there curves? Now you can see how on some of the other ones, like on this one, I kind of picked every single point. As I mentioned, you can do tab, and it'll highlight every single line. You may get that line is the sketch, line in sketch is slightly off axis. Usually just ignore that. Shouldn't really ever be an issue. I'm actually going to put this in. So I'm going to trim here, and here. This I don't need. Now that should split everything, and if we go to 3D and look, you can see that that surface is now split. And then I'm going to split for the parcels now. So I'm just going to go along, split out the bigger parcels, kind of like, the whole, again, kind of creating the sidewalk sort of area, easement lines of all the properties. And then you can see, like, when it gets really small, it's probably an area that doesn't have a sidewalk. And again, for basically the site that I'm creating now, and you're going to see it more once the site's finished, and I start to add basically the surrounding buildings. This is kind of very generic, kind of basic site, just to kind of give you an idea of scale. And obviously, as you go deeper into the project, and depending on views that you show, you want to kind of update the model, so you kind of add more detail levels to it, and I'll talk about that later on when we get to kind of the further on creating the site. So I'm going to finish that. So now that kind of sidewalk is split, easement line. So now I'm going to split the inside. I'm actually going to do this. And as you get familiar working with site, you'll start to pick up the best ways to kind of split from the biggest to the smallest. Because I could, if I wanted to, I could split this area, just this kind of square, kind of lot. But then it kind of becomes a pain to split the rest. Where if I do it, what I'm doing now, then I can just start to kind of put in lines, and it goes a little bit quicker. So now you can see like this top portion, and you can see here, you see how I'm actually like it's not letting me pick this. How it was here, if I hover here, I can pick. No, it went away. But if you hit Tab on your keyboard, it cycles between different things. So now I can pick that. And then, just pick this line, and then pick this again. So you can see how like doing it split in a larger kind of area and then splitting in between, it goes a little bit quicker than if I was trying to draw out each block on its own. So like I said, the more you use Revit, the kind of simpler it gets to start to split things, so it goes a little faster for you. But that, it just, everything comes with practice, and it's kind of the same as if you're used to using AutoCAD. You kind of get used to the different functions and become more familiar with everything the more you use it. Split this again. This one I'll just do like that. Easiest. And I'll split the bottom. And then, as I mentioned before, since this is kind of like a closed boundary already, so it knows that, so this boundary, it knows you're splitting into two because you're splitting here and here, so that's why it doesn't have to be a closed surface. So finish it off. A couple more. Split here. This. Split here. And this one I want to split there. And then this. Split that one first. One. So now everything's split for that. So that's how you start to split. So that's how you split. Kind of like the the surfaces that you just created. So as I mentioned, this is the end of this video, and then when I start the next video, which will start to show materiality, everything's going to be created. So from now, between the next two videos, I'm going to create the rest of the site.